Okay, this is going to be a short tutorial on how to design a snowboard through Fusion360. I used to design most of my snowboards in SketchUp, which worked not too bad, but Fusion is just a much better program. Obviously, there's a lot more tools. So we're just going to go ahead and design one. This is going to be actually a template so that when I design future snowboards, I can kind of have a starting point. So just started a sketch on that plane right there, and we're going to grab the line tool. You can also just hit L, and we'll start right from the very middle. What I want to do here is just kind of draw a rectangle. The initial measurements really don't matter. We're going to highlight all these lines. I'm holding down the Shift key, and we're just going to turn them into construction lines. Just change my view here. I'm actually using one of these 3D Connects 3D mouses, but obviously you can toggle your views over here. And I believe also with the Shift key, the Shift key and 2 fingers on the pad, you can swing all the way around like that. I'll go back, actually, back to the top. So we've got our rectangle. I'm just going to hit D for dimension. We're going to throw some dimensions on this. We're going to design a quarter of the snowboard here and then copy it around. This will be a twin tip. So let's say a 150 centimeter, nice short snowboard. So half that would be 75 centimeters. And then again for the width, typically snowboard, the widest part's not going to be more than 30 centimeters. So that'll happen sometimes. When you dimension something, it's important to click again and you get this window. I typically start typing in the dimension before I've clicked, and when I hit M, it thinks I want to move it. So I'm taking 15 centimeters, and there we go. We're just going to zoom out so you can see that. So there's the rough layout of the quarter of our snowboard. A couple more things we're going to want to put in here really quickly is a line for where the bindings are. Put a line for where the tip ends and for where the radius ends for the side cut, and then another line for the side cut radius. We can just go ahead, and I'm holding Shift, and highlight all these and turn them into construction lines, and then we can go ahead and dimension them also. So now I'm going to dimension between these two lines. So holding the Shift key, I'm going to grab those 2 points, and now that they're highlighted, hit the D and click. And we're going to go with half of a fairly wide stance. You can actually just type in metric or imperial. So I typed in 12 inches there, but it converted it because I've got my default set to metric. Let's go with, for the end of the side cut radius, we'll do this one here. And that, let's go with, I don't know, 55 centimeters, see what that looks like. Might be a bit short. And then for the tip, we'll go with, let's say, 18 centimeters. Oh, click, and now 18 centimeters. Okay, so the idea here is that all of these measurements we're going to be able to change in the future in the parameters box here. And then the model will update. So this will be a nice template for making a snowboard. So just to make everything clear, we're going to name the sketch snowboard shape, or maybe we'll just call it shape. And we'll go into the parameters. Now, I put my parameter up here because I use it a lot, but if you're looking for it, it's down in this menu here. So here we can see the sketch that is shape, and here are all the measurements. It numbers them 1 to 5. So we'll rename them here, and we'll call this half length. This would be half width. This would be half stance. This would be, what would this be? Half side cut. length, I guess. It's kind of a long one. This would be nose length, I guess. Okay, and actually, I think I want to add one more dimension here between these 2 points. Hit D, click, and so this is how far the side cut is actually going to cut into the board. Let's just make it 2 centimeters for now. We'll go back into the parameters, we can give that a name. Side cut, we'll call it. Okay, so we kind of have a rough blank here. We're going to now do another sketch for the profile. But first, maybe just to kind of catch you up, because this might not look like much of a snowboard, I'll just draw some actual lines in here so you can see what we're dealing with. So, tip of the snowboard. This particular tutorial, I'm not going to focus at all on really the finer points of the design, just kind of how to get a model going. So, you can see there we have a quarter of the snowboard. And we'll come back and probably tweak some of that after. So, stop sketch. There we go. It's actually a little bit hard to see with that blue. Maybe I'll just... there we go. I think that's a little easier. So now we're going to do another sketch. We're going to do it on this plane. I'm going to turn the board around here. Okay. So same thing, we kind of want just a rectangle to start with. Doesn't really matter. If you hover over an end, a point, kind of like in SketchUp, you can usually get it to kind of lock. There we go. And again, we want to convert all these into construction lines. So I was holding shift there. Okay, and then these lines here we want to transfer over to. It's good to know exactly where your bindings are going to be and everything. So they're not quite snapping to the right spot, but that's okay because we're going to use the measurements that we made the parameters for to define all those. So I'll just highlight all these, turn them into construction lines. We're also going to want probably a line for the camber. Oh. So turn that into a construction line. And probably we would put a few more reference lines in here as we kind of make a specific type of snowboard. Really tweak the parameters. But for now, I think this can be our tip height, this can be our camber height. That can kind of do for this tutorial. So again, we're going to do the dimensions, holding shift, hitting D, clicking, and this is the stance, half stance, I believe. Oh, cap locks is on here. Half stance. And this one is half, what was it? Side cut. Is that what it was? You know, usually it'll... oh, there we go. Oh. Usually it'll pop up when I find when I'm typing it. Let's just see what we... half side cut length. There we go. Okay. And this one here. This is nose length, I guess. Yeah. Okay. And down here, we'll actually go right to the bottom. This will be the tip height. Let's make it 7 centimeters for now. We're going to have to name that one. And this one is going to be camber height. Let's make it 2 centimeters. Okay. We've got everything defined, so back into the parameters. Sketch 2. Let's just give it a name. We'll call this one profile. Side profile. Okay. So we'll close the shape, open side profile. Yeah, so D7, half stance, that worked. D8, I guess we could, that should be half side cut length. So we'll just half side cut length. This was the height of the tip off the bottom of the ground, so we'll just call it tip height. Those keyboard things are kind of big, and we'll call this camber height. Okay. So now we need to draw in the side profile. We'll just turn off this sketch for a second. We're just going to go with something fairly easy here. There's our tip. This is going to be quite a cambery board, so we might want to actually change that. Actually, it doesn't look too bad. Draw a little line there. This is turning red, so usually when something's turning red, it means there's something wrong, but I don't see any warnings down here. Let's see if I turn this off. Yeah, no warnings. Sometimes you just want to check that you're doing these curves, that your curve doesn't go over. A good way to do that, if we go back into the edit the sketch, you can see that the tangent relationship is turned on. So this curve to this line here is tangent. In Fusion, anytime you draw a line on a sketch, it'll typically assume what kind of relationships you want. Sometimes you have to click on them and delete them, and then make new relationships if you're not kind of getting the result you want. So in this case, I just deleted that tangent, but to put it back, I'd click on tangent, click this line, and click the line I want a tangent to, and here we can see it comes right back. What's nice is all of this stuff is pretty obvious, and there's not that many of them. So, okay. So one thing I kind of am not liking right now is we've got this really hard transition from the camber to this flat spot. Because this curve is tangent with this flat line here, this is a nice transition, but this one's not very nice. So in the sketch, what we can do is we can just go in right away and just add a fillet to it. And let's see here. Oh, fillet cannot be created. Okay. Let's just hit the exit button. Let's try it again. Fillet. More info. Thanks. Okay, well, it might be too much of a, too shallow of an angle for fillet or something. I'm not sure. Oh, okay, so it looks like it's giving us the option for a very small fillet. Cool. Let's zoom way in there. You know what? Filleting this sketch is kind of tedious. What we can do after is once we have the 3D shape, we can then add a fillet to it. So I'm just going to hit Control Z and undo that. Okay, so one other thing that we're going to do here is we're going to actually define how thick the board is and how it becomes thinner at the tip. So an easy way to do that is we'll just do an offset. So let's go 6.5 millimeters right there. And on a Mac, you can hold the control button and swipe up, and you'll redo your last maneuver. So put this one, and the tip will go to 2 millimeters. Okay, so you can see there's 2 lines there. So what I want to do is I want to blend this 6.5 millimeter core down into the 2 millimeter tip. For the sake of brevity, I'm just going to do that in a very simple way. So I just drew a line from there to there. We're going to hit the T button, and we're just going to trim away some of the stuff that we don't need. Oh, that was a little bit too much. Do that. Okay. Let's go over here. We're going to trim this line. Why is it doing that? Okay. We want that one gone. We want this one gone, and this one gone. There we go. So we kind of got like a hard angle between these two, and down here we still have that hard angle on the bottom, which not ideal, but we can go and smooth those out after. I'm just going to close the tip off right there, and we'll close this end off too. You can see that now that it's completely closed, that it's a bit yellow in the middle. So we want to do the same thing actually with this half of the shape. So we'll just stop sketch, double click on this one to edit it. We'll just go around here, and then you can see that turns yellow. Okay, so we got our 2 profiles. Now what we're going to do is we're going to extrude them together to get a shape. So we'll start with this one, and we want it to come all the way out. Let's say 16 centimeters. It's going that way, so we're just going to add a negative sign, and we'll create a new body. Good. And then we'll just hide that for a second. And then we're going to do the same thing with this bottom one. And for distance, we can say through all. Instead of new body, what we want to do, I think, is intersect. I'll just turn that body on, pull it up through there. So the through all didn't seem to work. Maybe to object. We'll just go distance. We'll just manually pull it up there. Okay. So we can see that the bottom didn't get caught somehow. Let's just take a look at the sketch and see why that happened. Okay. So what we want to do is re-edit this. This is the timeline down here, so everything you do kind of happens sequentially. You can go back in time, the time bar. So just went back to that last one. So instead of just going on one side, we're going to go 2 sides. And we're also going to pull that intersection down. There we go. You can see that because my sketch was lower than the plane of the other sketch, it didn't catch it. Okay. So now that we got a shape coming from these measurements, you can really start to get a sense of how big the tip is, how much camber it has, all that type of good stuff. Maybe just to wrap this video up and keep it short, we're just going to quickly mirror this shape around and turn it into a single body. This is obviously just the core of the snowboard. Doesn't have any fiberglass or edges or sidewalls or anything inserts yet, but I'll do some tutorials on adding all those layers, and then probably even how to make a mold and go into the CAM software on here, and you can then CNC your molds, CNC your cores, all that type of thing. So next step, so we're kind of done with the sketches, so we're going to close that and we'll turn them off, and we're going to just open up the bodies. We have this one body here, and what we're going to do is we're just going to mirror it. Where's mirror under create? So I've already selected it. We're mirroring the bodies, and the plane is going to be this one. You can see there it goes. We'll click OK. Now we have these two bodies. We're actually we'll just combine them. And I think that's under modify. So combine this body with this body, join. You do want to turn things into components as you build them, but for right now we'll just leave that. Okay, so we mesh those two bodies into one, and then we're going to do another mirror. Oh, under create. And we're going to select this body. Oh, so it's not selecting because the pattern type is faces. What we want is bodies. Select the body, and then the mirror plane, we'll choose this plane now. There we go. Alright, so there's our snowboard. It's kind of an interesting shape. Got a little point to it. Very, very cambered, as you can see. So maybe before ending this, we'll just really quickly go back into the parameters and see how changing some of these dimensions can really change the board. So let's change the length to, let's say 80, which I guess would be a 160 centimeter snowboard. Okay, look at that. So that actually, what happened there? So what happened was, turn on the sketch. Our profile, side profile, didn't keep up with the top-down profile. So I have to go into the parameters. I have to make sure that these are all the same. So half length. Okay. So I don't have half length referenced in the side profile. So let's fix that. So go into the sketches here. So all I need to do, actually first we'll undo that change. So Command Z. Okay, turn on the sketches. Oh, go back one more time. Command Z, there we go. Okay, now go into the sketches, turn off the bodies. We want to edit the sketch, and what we want to do is we want to add a constraint for this whole length. Holding Shift, come up here, and this is half length. There we go. So now, if I exit the sketch, turn off the sketches, turn the bodies back on, and if I go back into parameters and try that again, it should work. 80 centimeters. Okay, boom. So it just got quite a bit longer. And we can do the same thing with the width. Let's say we want to make it a little bit skinnier. 17.6 centimeters. There we go. I don't know if this window kind of blocks it. Let's see if I can get it so you can see both. Let's make it real skinny. 12 centimeters. There we go. Let's say our stance, we want to get a little more specific with it. 7.75, we'll go with inches. So the stance, all that's happening with that one is obviously in the sketch here, this line where the stance is, like where the middle of your body would be, is changing. We're going to make that line have a relationship with where the inserts are when we install them on this design, and so that your inserts can move back and forth. This is obviously for a symmetrical snowboard. You could easily do the same thing by designing half of the whole board and then just mirroring the half for a directional snowboard. So this is starting to look more like a ski. Let's just quickly change it back to something maybe a little floatier, something we be really excited to ride in some deep powder. Let's go with 15.5 centimeters. Let's bump this down to 76 centimeters. Okay, turn off these sketches. And let's maybe just quickly, oh, actually, we still have two bodies here. So let's make them one. Combine that one with this one. Oh, select the tool body. There we go. Join is the operation. Okay, so now we have one body. And let's maybe make this out of some sort of an exotic wood. appearance. Let's go down to some solid woods. Finished. The koa is typically very gorgeous. I'll just throw it on there. Oh yeah. One of the really nice things about Fusion 360 is that you can actually change everything about how this wood looks, the grain, the tightness of the grain, the knots, like how much dimpling and everything it all has. You can do that right in the model desktop here, but you can also do it in the render desktop, which is where you kind of get a better look at what it looks like. And this render desktop is just great to kind of get a sense. Sometimes the renders look so good, you almost think you made it already. Maybe the last thing we'll do here is just change the environment. What is that? Setup scene. Here we go. We'll put it in a snowy field, because I know they have one of those in here somewhere. Snowy field. And it's just thinking. Did it work? Well, that doesn't look very snowy. But maybe I have to double click on it. Attach custom environment. Oh, you can make your own environment. Current environment. Well, I've actually never seen this in the rendering thing, but it's not updating very well right now. It looks like the reflections actually on the board have changed. They look like it's in a snowy field, but also usually down here you'll get an update, some initial renders. So looks like just something's lagging a little bit right now. Anyways, that's your snowboard design in Fusion 360. Just super basic. For now, just the core, but fully parametric, so very easy to go in and adjust after. And,